Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhi Shavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Hari Om, salutations to all. So we were seeing the Jivan Mukta Lakshan 435. We saw Ishta Anishta Artha Sampraptau Samadarshitaya Atmani. Favorable or unfavorable, pleasing or painful, when one confronts things, situations which are in the pairs of opposites, one is a Samadarshi. Samadarshitaya Atmani. And how does one face unperturbed? Ubhayatva, Ubhayatra Avikaritva. So one faces this completely unperturbed, and we saw yesterday about how to face the difficult situations. 4 things we saw in that. One is Dhairya, fortitude and patience. Second is Titiksha, forbearance. Third is Jnanam, to learn out of it. Fourth is Vairagya. Now, how to face the good times. When favorable circumstances happen, what should one do? Become very alert. First thing. Generally, one will want to enjoy only the good times. But for a spiritual seeker, one should become alert, because these favorable times can also make the person forget self-control, boost the ego. Nothing wrong in feeling good, but this alertness must be there, that one is not unknowingly going on a path where the spiritual development, instead of happening, one is getting more entangled. So the ego should not rise up. How does that happen? If I live in self-control, even in good times, I can enjoy, but without breaking the boundaries of control that I have imposed on myself for my spiritual growth. Many times it happens that when we become successful, we break all boundaries of morality, of self-control. So that's what one should be alert about. And the 2 other aspects which can help to remain grounded are Namrata and Kritagnata, humility and gratitude. Whatever we have achieved is achieved by the efforts of the totality, not just me alone. And it is also grace of the Lord. So gratitude and humility keep one grounded. For this Jivan Mukta, it is a completely different state altogether. They have done this in the sadhana avastha and risen above this, Because the entity who feels all this, that entity only has got falsified. And that's why Ubhayatva Avikaritva, because they are established in that which is avikari, there is no chance that the mind will come down and get entangled in any of this, because their identity has completely shifted. It's like the dreamer who has woken up, that example that we saw yesterday. So now coming to the Jivan Mukta situation, what we should understand little more deeper is this, that whenever we experience happiness or sorrow, these three things have to happen. One is there is a nimitta, there is an external cause for this happiness or sorrow. Right now there is a tough situation, so coronavirus is a nimitta. Then there is a thought of sukha or dukkha, the vritti has to arise. Situation may be there, but if the vritti doesn't arise, if the thought doesn't arise, we won't experience happiness or sorrow. Like many children, they don't know the intensity of the situation, the danger of the situation. Some of them don't know. So the thoughts only don't arise in their mind. Now, if the thoughts don't arise, then one will not experience. Nimitta is still there, but the thought is not rising. Then comes one more aspect, which is called tadatmya. The thought will arise and I identify with that. I am sukhi or I am dukhi. When I identify, then I have taken it personally and it will affect me either way. It can elate me or it can make me sad, depending on whichever is the vritti. So what happens is this: if the nimitta is there, by itself it will not cause sukha and dukkha until vritti rises. A vritti can rise, a thought can rise, and it can just pass. I may not identify with it. Then also sukha and dukkha will not be experienced. It will just go away. But when I actually identify and I say that I am sukhi and I am dukhi because of this nimitta, because of this thought, then I really experience the sukha and dukkha. So many thoughts come into our mind, we don't identify with them. It applies to both good and bad. Every thought that rises in the mind, if we start identifying with it, we will land up somewhere completely lost. So there are many thoughts that arise. Imagine 60,000 thoughts rising in the mind every day. We don't identify and jump at all the 60,000 thoughts. The thoughts rise, they go. It's an expression of some vasana earlier, so that we understand the cycle. Vasana, desire, thought, action, result, vasana. So according to that cycle, thoughts may rise. And in that, some of the thoughts we identify with, depending on how strong the vasana is and whatever is my present state of knowledge and purusharth, so I identify. Some thoughts, many thoughts, they go. So now this sukha and dukkha actually rises only when the sukhakara vritti and dukkhakara vritti I identify with. And I say, I am sukhi, I am dukhi. For a common person, for an ordinary person, this vritti which is there, one thinks that vritti to be real. I am sukhi, I am dukhi, that vritti when it rises, that tadatmya when it rises, that is real. Because the entity is real. I am Mr. So and so. Now, because of this, I am sukhi, because of that, I am dukhi. So that entity is real, and then sukha and dukkha, vritti when it rises, there is a tadatmya, there is an identification, and one becomes sukhi and dukhi. But for a Jivan Mukta, that entity has got falsified. Now, one very important thing happens in them is, then how do we see them sukhi and dukhi? Sometimes yesterday, like I said, Gurudev was very sad when Ram Batra passed away, and then also When Suvarna Tulabharam happened, he was very happy that the Hindu culture revival has started. What he worked for his whole life, that process has accelerated. So when these things happen to them, how do we understand that? Nimitta is there, yes. Vritti is there, yes. Tadatmya is there, yes. So then what is the difference between them and us? The difference is that Tadatmya for us is real because the entity is real. The difference in them is they don't see the entity only as real. So that everything that entity goes through itself is unreal. Like the actor example. The actor plays the role, everything that the role goes through. If the actor doesn't identify with the role and the the dialogues and the situation of that role, that actor cannot play that role. But the actor plays that role with the full awareness that this is only a role, this is not real, this is not me at all. Knowledge of Vedanta is to give that clarity to us. One is intellectual clarity and second is the experiential clarity, which one experiences through samadhi, that I am not this entity, I am beyond body, mind, intellect, still I am. That entity is pure consciousness, that is me, remaining unaffected by these roles that are being played. So through both these, the Jivan Mukta is very well established in that which is the changeless absolute consciousness. So even if there is a Tadatmya, that entity is false. So the Tadatmya of the entity also is false, Vritti also is false, and Nimitta does not affect them at all. So this aspect is what we have to understand here is Jivan Mukta's quality. That is, Jivan Mukta lives in this state. Who doesn't, it is not that for them the Vritti doesn't arise or Tadatmya is not there. But the most significant difference between them and us is the entity has got falsified. That is called Badhita Ahankar. Falsified ego. In us it is abadhita, it is real. So everything that this ego goes through, we are going through. Everything that the role is going through, the actor is going through in our situation. In their situation, everything that the role is going through, the actor knows it is false. So now that is why the difference in responses, and that is how the equanimity gets maintained. Samadarshitaya Atmani. So yesterday we also saw about how this Jivan Mukta is a Samadarshi as far as the guna and dosha is concerned. Guna dosha vishishte asmin. So with respect to the world outside, the Jivan Mukta is a Samadarshi. With respect to the responses inside, when we face the pleasant and unpleasant situations, then from within also the Jivan Mukta is Samadarshi. And their Samadarshitvam, that is why we cannot judge. They will look like anybody else. Like if Gurudev is crying, people will feel, how is Jivan Mukta crying? Because we are looking at Jivan Mukta with some fixed notion in our head. That Jivan Mukta cannot cry, Jivan Mukta cannot get angry, Jivan Mukta will not have, elation. It is not a stone-like state. Then it is not worth pursuing that. Changeless bliss, no, but they are supposed to revel in bliss all the time. So what do we mean? They'll revel in bliss means they'll go on smiling at everybody, whoever comes. They go on laughing, jumping. No. Ups and downs will be there in life that entity is going to go through. It has its prarabdha karma, it has a vasana bundle. They don't identify with that entity at all. And if you ask them, they will say nothing is happening. But you and I can't understand that nothing is happening. There is only one changeless Brahman. Because we are still seeing them in this world. So then what are they going through? So then the scripture gives all this examples with such detailing that the vritti also arises, tadatmya also may be there, but that entity who is having all these, that is all, that is falsified. And that's why Vedanta is a cure. It goes to the deepest level of falsifying this entity completely. Every other method can be a relief method. Either we come to Vedanta or we come to spirituality, I should say. Bhakti Marg, Jnana Marg, Yoga Marg, whichever one follows, Karma Marg, they will be ultimately to falsify this entity. The other methods of relief, they will keep the entity intact and do some superficial touch-up. Whether it is through medication, through some relaxation technique, or cultivating some hobbies, or traveling to some favorite places, whatever it may be. Talking out to somebody, pouring out to somebody, there could be 100 methods like that. And each of them have their own relevance. No, not everybody can go to the depth that Vedanta is speaking about. But the difference one should understand between a relief and a cure. A cure is where one is removing the most deepest cause of sorrow. So Adhidaivik, Adhibhautik and Adhyatmik. The three levels of the three sources of sorrow. In that the Adhyatmik sorrow, the root cause of that Adhyatmik sorrow is ignorance. I don't know who am I, and then I am falsely projecting myself as this Mr. So and so. So the false projection has been falsified and the ignorance has been destroyed through the knowledge. That is Jivan Mukta Lakshana. So Gurudev's language, misapprehension is gone, non-apprehension also is gone. And hence the Jivan Mukta lives internally in that state where one is established in Brahman, whose nature is equanimity. Avikaritvam is the nature of Brahman. Avikaritvam is not the nature of the mind. Mind will go through vikar. So then in sadhana, should we practice equanimity or not, equanimity of the mind or not? We should practice. Because equanimity of the mind is what will lead us to the self within. If the mind goes on fluctuating, there is no capability in the mind to turn within and contemplate steadily. So as a sadhak, we have to practice equanimity of the mind and become more and more introverted, more and more contemplative. Realize the self. Then that entity is got falsified. Then I don't have to bother more about the mind. Because how long will I practice equanimity of the mind? Because all said and done, mind is a flow of thoughts and it will work in pair of opposites. And in time, there will be pairs of opposites. As long as mind is there, time is there. As long as time is there, there will be pairs of opposites. Now, where is the solution? Either I can keep getting bashed by these pairs of opposites, which is what the student had asked. Durvara samsara davagni taptam. In this samsara, I am getting roasted in this forest fire. Dodhuyamanam, I am getting beaten up and thrashed. Duradrishta vataihi, with this terrible winds in this samsara. There are pairs of opposites. So either I can get bashed up like that, or I practice equanimity of the mind for some time, get the capability to dive deep, falsify that entity by gaining Brahma Vidya. Then I remain established in equanimity. Externally, as we said, there will be nimitta, there will be vritti, there may be tadatmya also. You may say, which entity is tadatmya it is? That falsified entity is tadatmya it is. And that is an explanation from our standpoint. Please remember that. For the Jivan Mukta is established in Avikari Tattva, nothing is happening. But for us, very difficult to comprehend that. So, Shastra also gives some examples for us to understand because we can't comprehend. You know, it is easy to describe Brahman, but it is more difficult to describe Jivan Mukta. Why? Brahman, you can easily say, is unborn, unchanging, undying, eternal, absolute, supreme, because there is no contradiction in that. Here, there is a contradiction. One hand, we say avikaritvam, but he is going through anger. On one hand, we say there is absolutely, he is reveling in bliss, but sometimes you see them crying. So one wonders, Kare, what is happening here? That's why Brahman is more easy to describe because only one level. Jivan Mukta is established in the absolute level, playing the role at the relative level, and the people who are in the relative level are seeing that. For the Jivan Mukta, the relative level also is an illusion. But for the people, Jivan Mukta is real. So many complications come inside there. That's why easy to describe Brahman. See, Brahman that Tapan Maharaj realized, Vivekananda realized, Mirabai realized, Andal realized, Gurudev realized, Brahman is the same. But you try to dissect the life of each of these people and how they lived after their Jivan Mukti, each of them would have lived differently. Their abidance is the same, their realization is the same. Internally, they experience the same bliss. But externally, each of them, the circumstances are different, the responses are different, everything is different. And hence, at one point, Gurudev said, you know, the Jivan Mukta is a scripture by himself. What the Jivan Mukta does becomes scripture. No scripture can dare to tell the Jivan Mukta how Jivan Mukta should behave. Scripture is meant for people who are not yet realized. Person who is already realized, what law can scripture tell? Nothing it can tell. Scriptures are fulfilled. The person who reached the destination, what is the use of the map? And nobody can tell that this is what the map is saying, now you do this. He already reached the destination. So that's why Jivan Mukta is a mystery. I will put the exact quote, you know, Gurudev's exact quote is there. Very beautiful quote it is. I will put it in the group. So this is Jivan Mukta Lakshan. Now continuing, 436. Brahmananda rasaswada asakta chittataya yatehe antarbahir avijnanam Jivan Muktasya Lakshanam. See, I told now this. You see the contrast between 435 and 436. In the shloka only there is a contrast. Then what will be the experience? Brahmananda Rasa Aswada. The Jivan Mukta is as though enjoying the bliss of Brahmananda. Asakta Chittataya Yatehe. Asakta means attached. Here, attached is not in that context of how we understand attachment. Attached here is in the context of constantly engaged in, never disassociated with it. Brahmananda Rasa Aswada Asakta Chittataya Yatehe. This sannyasi, this realized person is constantly engaged in drinking the bliss of Brahman as though. Antar Bahir Avijnanam. There is no boundary of inside and outside. This boundary of inside outside is from the standpoint of the body. Body identification is not there. So no inside, no outside. That is the quality of the Jivan Mukta. Jivan Muktasya Lakshanam. You just see. Earlier it was said, pairs of opposites, they come and he remains unaffected. The very next shloka falsifies that also, saying there is no difference between inside and outside for that Jivan Mukta. And in this commentary, Gurudev has written one powerful line, you know, he says here that There is a bliss because the mind has been transcended. And then he says, mind is a cancerous ulcer which bleeds out sorrows. As long as you work through the mind, you will suffer. What a line that is. Mind is a cancerous ulcer that bleeds out sorrow. Some people may think, oh, what a pessimistic line it is. It is not. Compared to Brahmananda Rasa, whatever we experience here is sorrow only. However great the temporary joy and pleasure may be, compared to Brahmananda Rasa, it is sorrow. We discussed this earlier also. The bliss of Brahmaji, the highest bliss that is there in this creation is the bliss of Brahmaji, the creator. The bliss of Brahmaji is one drop in the ocean of bliss of this great realized master. Then what to talk about anything else in the world? So that's why he says Brahmananda Rasa Aswada Asakta Chittataya. One who is reveling in that bliss constantly. There is no distinction between inside and outside. Hence, sometimes one may feel the Jivan Mukta is a mad person. That's why the example also comes in Bhaja Govinda. Ramate Bala Unmattavat Eva. That person revels in this bliss like a child and like an intoxicated person. Now, intoxicated person has no sense of reality. One may be right in the house, but one may keep saying, take me home, take me home, take me home. There's no, one is reveling in their own, what they call, kick or high or whatever they call it. Similarly is this Jivan Mukta, reveling in the bliss of Brahman. Sometimes they will be, the example sometimes given in the scripture is, sometimes they will be like a python, Ajgara Vritti. Python means, what does the python do? It will consume some prey and then it will just sit. For days on and it will just be there, digesting it. So Ajgar Vritti is the Jivan Mukta, sometimes one sees the Jivan Mukta absolutely indifferent to the world, including to their body. Nothing, just lying there. They will look worse than tamasic people. A tamasic person at least will be in tamas for, let us say, apart from sleep also, some 4, 5, 8 hours, 10 hours. Sometime they will get up and do something. At least eat. This Jivan Mukta is lying just like that. May not even eat, may not even drink water. Just lying like that. Completely indifference to the body. Complete. May not meet people at all. So either they could be like that, or sometimes you may find them talking, sometimes just laughing, sometimes absolutely silent. His Hastamalaka was like that. Not a word he spoke till he met Shankaracharya. He has not spoken a word from the time he is born. And when Shankaracharya, and he used to be like a mad person, rolled in sand, suddenly laugh, look at the sky and, laugh loudly. Something he will do, people will think, what happened to this guy? He's mad. When they finally took him to Shankaracharya ji, he asked him, Kastvam Shisho, oh, who are you, oh child, who are you? And he's not a small child now, he's grown up. But Shankaracharya is calling him like that, Kastvam Shisho. So the parents brought him and said, our child has some problem, can you help? He is not spoken. They thought there is some speech issue. He asked him, who are you, O child? Kastvam Shisho. Kasya, to whom do you belong? Kutosi Ganta, where are you going? Kim Nama Petvam, what is your name? Kuta Agatosi, from where did you come? And he said, you please tell this to me. Mat Pritaye Priti Vivardhanosi. You will bring a lot of joy to me because you are somebody who enhances everybody's joy. And the first time this boy is speaking, straight Advait Vedanta. Naham manusyo na chadeva yakshaha na brahmana kshatriya vaishya shudraha na brahmachari na grihi vanasthaha bhikshur na chaham nijabodha rupaha. First time he's speaking, is straight is saying that I am not a manusya, I am not a devata, I am not a gandharva, not a yaksha, I am not a brahmachari, grihasti, vanaprasthi or a sannyasi. I am beyond four. I am not brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra also. Now what is that? What we learned, na? Jati, Niti, Kula, Gotra, Durakam. That Brahman is this. So the Jivan Mukta is very difficult to comprehend. Externally to impossible. And now you imagine people go around searching for a guru. Who is my guru? How can we search a guru? If this is the quality of Jivan Mukta, internally where the entity has got completely falsified, externally they live in, externally for us, for them there is no internal external. That's the shloka saying. They are constantly engaged in bliss of Brahman. Now who is engaged in that? Nobody is engaged in that. That's limitation of language. But somebody will pick on this word chitta. He says, oh, see, asakta chitta is written. So that means they have a chitta. They have a chitta from our standpoint. And that we saw in the previous word, that their chitta is falsified. It is not real. Our chitta is real to us. So if somebody picks on that word chittataya, then okay, that's a limitation of language here. They are one with Brahman, Brahmavit, Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. So constantly reveling in that bliss, there is no distinction of inside, outside, nothing. Kabir Das ji also said, na, the kumbha is there. When that kumbha is broken, that kumbha is a pot. And the pot, if you put in the lake to take some water, inside the pot is water, outside the pot is also water. Actually, the pot need not even be broken. The realization is that inside, outside is all water only. There is nothing else. This pot is an illusion. Narayana Suktam also says, Antar Bahischa Tat Sarvam Vyapya Narayana Sthita. There is only one pure consciousness, Narayana, who is inside, outside, everywhere. So that is the experience of this Jivan Mukta. Brahmananda Rasa Aswada. Asakta. Chittataya Yatehe. Going further. Dehendriyadav kartavye mamaham bhava varjitaha audasinyena yastishtet sajivan mukta lakshanaha. So just now I spoke about this also. The deha indriyadav kartavye mama aham bhava varjitaha. There is no sense of I and mine, mama and aham bhava. In what? Deha indriya adav. In the body, in the senses, there is no sense of I. So kartavya varjita. There is no kartavya also. No duty. My duty is not there. My family, my country. So as long as I and my is there, so long duty is important. I and mine gone, no duty. Audasinyena yastishtet. And so the person may live in indifference. Now, we should not judge them from this criteria, which is another criteria that we put. See, all this is actually to tell us the Jivan Mukta is freed from all these conditionings, because we look at the Jivan Mukta through these glasses. So now, if a Raman Maharshi or a Tapan Maharaj, they are sitting quietly, they have not gone out in a missionary way to spread this knowledge and all that. And a Vivekanandji or a Gurudev has gone out, or a Samat Ramdas, they have gone out and they are doing tremendous dynamic work and build institutions, organizations, all this. One cannot judge that this person is dull, lazy, lethargic, and this person is very dynamic. So this is tamas, this is rajas. That is from common man standpoint, we think like that. The experience of both these people is the same. There is no difference at all. So whether they are sitting in Audasinium or they are becoming dynamic makes no difference. Audasiniya yat tishtet. Their Audasinya is not like ours where we are lazy. We are not actually Audasinya. We are Udas. We are sad. We are miserable, lazy. This Audasinya, earlier I explained that Ut means up, Asina means to sit. They are established in the highest, that is Brahman. Externally, they may not do anything or they may do something also. In either ways, there is no sense of duty that I have to do it. Now, if we say that no, but Gurudev felt compelled, to go down and share, and he said urge is irresistible, not because he felt it is a duty and he's bound by that duty. There is a causeless compassion that arises in the heart. Ganga Ma has no duty to flow down. Out of inspiration she flows. Same way, Jivan Mukta may do something out of inspiration. He is not duty bound. There is no question of duty. Duty is a concept which is there for the ego. As long as I have expectations from people, from the world, from the Lord, so long I have duty also, because that entity is real. So if I am thinking of myself as this Mr. So-and-so who is a real entity, who has expectations from the world and from the people, then I have duty also towards them. Oh, that's all. Okay, from today I give up all expectation. I don't expect anything from anybody. Try. How much can we sustain that? After some time, the mind will say, I hope somebody gives me some food. Where to live free of expectation is not a joke. So this person has gone beyond duty. In the Gita, Bhagavan says that Yastu Atmaratireva Syat Atmatriptascha Manavaha Atmanyeva cha Santushtaha Tasya Karyam na Vidyate. Third chapter he says. One who has Rati, Tripti, Santushti in the self. No duty for that person. Our Rati, Tripti, Santushti comes from outside. Rati comes from objects. Tripti comes from people. Santushti comes from situations. If we have any of these three or all of these three expectations are there, there are duties. Duty is important for keeping us in a mode of giving. Number one. Number two, duty helps us to overcome likes and dislikes. Whether I like it or not, I have a duty. If I am a student, I have a duty, I must study. I may like some subjects, I may not like some subjects, but on the whole, I have to study all. Then as I grow, I may specialize in one which is my field of interest. That is a different matter. So as a student, I have a duty. As a householder, I have a duty. So as a student, that duty and commitment towards study will ensure that I gain knowledge and I have a clarity, I have a certain vision in life, and I live in self-control. So in Gurukul, so following Brahmacharya, following Satyam, following Ahimsa, one stays in Gurukul, serves the teacher, learns various values of life practically. So there is a duty towards the Shastra, towards God, towards Guru. So there is one choti which will be there. That is, all the hair is shaven off, only one tuft is there. That is symbolic that only your focus is to be on God, Guru, scriptures. That's it. Don't focus on anything else. Comfort. The life as a student has to be with bare minimum and not a slave of comfort, more of austerity, self-control, discipline. Then the real potential will manifest. So I have a duty as a student. I have a duty as a householder. And a person who will become a householder, our scripture has given such nice conditions for it. Either you should have read the three Vedas, or two, or at least one, and followed brahmacharya, served a guru, and gained the knowledge. Then you become ready to marry a girl. That is the Smriti has written that. Who reads all that? They want to pick up some verses from the scriptures, and here and there they will pick up some things and they will say this is all outdated, and they fight against all this. The qualification is given. Who can get into household life? Somebody who has gone through Janev Samskar, somebody who has done Upasana, somebody who has lived in Brahmacharya, who has studied the Veda, that person will be able to, is a qualified person to get into Grahasthashram. Without knowing anything of what is the goal of life, without knowing what is the way to live the life ahead, at what time should I drop certain things, nothing. One doesn't know half of those things. One feels I grew up, I got married, I got some job, I'm earning some decent amount. Now get married. Now many people don't even want to get married, and all kinds of stupid logic. How can you stay committed to one person? You can have multiple people in life at different stages. All kinds of nonsense going on. Because one doesn't know what is the anchoring, one doesn't have in the proper knowledge, the scriptures. So there are duties, and people don't want duties. Today, one of the biggest problems in the world is pleasure without responsibility. No responsibility one wants to take. Of oneself also and of others also. Then that is harmful. So many children getting abandoned, orphaned, teenage pregnancies happening, drugs and all that people are getting into and destroying their lives of people around them. And the strange thing is, even in this lockdown situation, there is a proper supply of drugs happening to drug addicts. Some of the psychiatrists were telling me, Swamiji, there is a proper supply which is happening. Otherwise, these drug addicts, if they have been deprived of the drugs, immediately there will be panic and there will be withdrawal symptoms, and we will start getting phone calls. But none of them are calling. That means they are getting some supply somewhere. So pleasure without responsibility. So duties are there as long as there is an ego in us. And the strange thing is this, this ego doesn't want to follow duty. The duty is meant to thin out the ego. So the ego doesn't want to follow duty in the name of this is a restricted life. I live a free life. I live an open life. I am a free bird. I can do whatever I want. How? As long as I am in the world with a finite entity, I have duties. I have a duty as a grahasthi towards my family, towards society, towards the pitrus, towards the rishis. Pancha Mahayajna is a concept which is there for that. That a householder is in a debt. We are in a debt and we have to repay the debt. So that will keep the mind on a track. And it will help to evolve. And finally, the beautiful aspect of duty is if I follow my duties properly, I will go beyond all duties. The joy of doing the duty for the sake of duty, we don't know. We do duty not for the joy of duty. We do duty because we want some benefits. We want people to recognize, we want some enjoyment, we want some wealth, we want the extra benefits of duty, not the joy of doing the duty. One will ask also, what will I get if I do this? Arey, it is your duty, just do it, over. No. I have to know what will I get? What is in it for me? The mother doesn't ask the child what is in it for me. She has the joy of bringing up the child. Now if the mother starts thinking, what will I get out of this? What will happen to the child? So duty has its beauty. One has to figure out and stay focused on the duty before one comes to this state where one has gone beyond all duties. So brahmacharya ashram there is duty, grihastha ashram there is duty. So many parents are getting abandoned by their children. Can you imagine? They drop them somewhere or put them in some orphanage, not orphanage, what is it, old age home. What about the duty towards them? No, but how can we spoil our life for them? And then celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day. How ridiculous is that? That mother and father who gave their life to bring you up, now you have put them in a orphanage, in a old age home, not taking care. In the name, my life is important. They put their life aside to bring you up. No? But many of those things one doesn't think. This concept of duty, one thinks is a bondage. Actually, it is the other way. Duty is liberating. And finally, one goes beyond duty. So this Jivan Mukta is like that. So Brahmachari, Grihasthi, Vanaprasthi, they will have to do Sandhya Vandan. They will have certain duties. Sannyasi does not have duties imposed on the sannyasi, but the sannyasi takes it upon oneself to serve, out of inspiration, to serve, to do sadhana, to revel in the name of the Lord. So when sannyas is given, then that tuft is shaved. The last trace of duty also is gone now. And especially if one is a Vidvat sannyasi. The one who is a Vividisha sannyasi is still a seeker who is full-time committed to spiritual development and seva. Vidvat sannyas means somebody who has no body identification. That is a high level of sannyas. So for that person, no duty. Gone beyond all duties. That is this Jivan Mukta Lakshana. So following duties in life, one has falsified that entity and one realizes that. Even Ramana Maharshi said, Krityam asti kim swasthitim yataha. When a person has attained swasthiti, meaning abidance in the self, Krityam asti kim, what is there to do? All duties have ended. All duties end in realizing the self. And if somebody is ready for that, even if one abandons other duties, there is not a problem. Chanakya himself said that. For the sake of the family, the individual has to sacrifice oneself. For the sake of the community, a family can sacrifice itself. For the sake of the nation, a community can sacrifice itself. But for the sake of the Atma, one can sacrifice everything. Meaning, if one is ready to realize the self, not an escapist, somebody who is ready to realize the self, sincerely committing to walk the path in spite of all the challenges that come, that person can drop other duties. So if a Siddhartha drops all the duties and goes in search of the truth, there's nothing wrong because he's not an escapist. And that person who enlightened himself or herself then is able to bring light to so many countless people across the world for millenniums together. Because they discovered the goal of life, the very Brahmananda, the supreme bliss that one is waiting to experience. In and through all our actions, we want that bliss. And we are not finding it. And here is somebody who has found it and who is sharing it with people. So that entity only has got falsified, who had the duties, and this person has gone beyond duties. So if somebody is ready for this state, then they are eligible to drop the other duties. Because this entity who has all the duties, that to falsify that entity, this person is going now. And that's why moksha is not selfish. Moksha is not selfish because the ego, which is about selfishness, that ego only is getting destroyed. To dissolve that ego is the journey that one is taking up. Retaining the ego, if I say I do it only for myself, then that becomes selfish. This I and my only one has given up. Aham mama aham bhava varjita. So this I and mine is given up. Where is the question of duty? Where is the question of any selfishness in that? So moksha is the most selfless pursuit actually, because one is ready to give up the ego completely. So that is the quality of a Jivan Mukta. Dehe Indriyadav Kartavye Mama Aham Bhava Varjita. No attachment to the BMI, so no duties, and freed from this notion of I and mine. Audasinyena yastishte. One lives with indifference. Now this indifference may be literal indifference or internal indifference. Internal indifference anyway is there in all of the Mahatmas. Towards the BMI, there is no attachment. In fact, it may be the other way also. Earlier we have discussed sometimes, that Gurudev, when he went on the Char Dham Yatra, he saw how some of these Mahatmas are living, completely oblivious of their body. And in fact, if there are some maggots on the body and they fall down, this Mahatma takes the maggots and puts them back on the body, saying, "Ki, there you are. You had fallen down, I have put you back." Hare. And then he tells Gurudev, matter is feeding on matter. Mind also is matter, body is also matter. I am the indestructible spirit. And on the face, there is no sense of pain. I'm not saying everybody will do that, but they live like that, complete indifference. Even if the body drops off, body dies, it makes no difference to them. In that level of indifference, they live. That is far, far, far beyond any selfishness. Completely indifferent to the physical condition and even safety and security of the body. So that is the quality of a Jivan Mukta. So for today, I will stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.